A couple months back, my friend Brian and I were just talking, and he asked me if I'd ever thought about learning to scuba dive. I told him that I'd actually gotten PADI certified in college back in 1986. I made a few dives that first year, but really haven't done anything since. Well, the next thing you know, we're both signed up for the refresher course at our local dive shop, and today we're going on our first dive together. For our first adventure, we decided to check out Scuba Ranch, which is a 22-acre spring-fed lake about an hour east of Dallas near Terrell, Texas. This privately owned lake is dedicated to recreational scuba, so no boats, no fishing, just scuba. There is on-site equipment rental and tank service, and there are about 24 piers and pavilions around the lake to choose from. Besides lots of fish, the lake has several sunken items of interest to explore. Boats, airplanes, grain silos, even a huge metal shark named Cisco. We camped at Pavilion number 23, which is sponsored by our local dive shop, International Scuba in Frisco. It's got electricity, running water, lights, picnic tables, a grill, and there's plenty of nice campsites nearby. We were anxious to get in the water, so we started prepping our equipment right away. While Brian is putting his gear together up at the pavilion, I take mine down to the nearby floating pier. The plan was to do an afternoon dive while it was still light, and then set up our tents and get a bite to eat, and then finish up with a night dive. For the first dive, I decided to leave my camera behind so I could really focus on my dive skills and equipment. Now that we've finished our afternoon shakeout dive, and all went well, we're back to start our night dive, and I've added the GoPro to the mix. For the first part of the night dive, we explored a series of underwater platforms. At the platforms, we spotted a few fish, mostly perch, but some bass also. It was cool because they seemed to be sleeping or in an alpha state. One thing we discovered was that all the platforms were connected underwater by lines. So this allowed us to stay submerged and swim from one item to the next without having to surface to navigate. They weren't too deep, around 20 to 25 feet, so it wasn't too cold. All scuba divers know this, but above water, when the air temperature changes 10 degrees, it's hardly noticeable. But underwater, it's a huge difference. 58-degree water at 40 feet is much colder than 68-degree water at 25 feet. After the platforms, we found a sunken cabin cruiser. This was the coolest thing so far, and it was filled with huge bass, but unfortunately my GoPro battery died right before we found it, dang it. After our 2 long dives yesterday, we both got a good night's sleep. me in my REI tent, and Brian in his new truck tent, which, it turns out, is not mosquito-proof. We took our time this morning getting some breakfast and coffee before venturing out again. It was going to be another beautiful day, sunny with a high of 83, and I was excited about getting my first underwater shots in the daylight.
So let me ask you, yesterday we were going down to some pretty cold depths.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you feel it the most?
Oh, my head.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what I suggest we might want to think about today is getting those hoods on today and going.
So yeah, I think wearing the hoods would be a good idea today.
Yeah. Especially with the. I wonder if the visibility will be any better. Right now, the 20 feet. That's the part that sucks. If you have visibility, go in this water at that color thing is not that bad. Yeah, well, I'm sure the night is going to show a lot more color in the fish. You remember, like last night when I was shining both of us were shining our flashlights on the right on those little fish that were all covering the platform. You could see all the colors in there. I don't think you normally see that in a day.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think I should take my light.
You take it anyway?
Today, yeah, because when you get down there, it gets darker, and I think it'll help illuminate the fish better.
Yeah, why not?
So.
Well, what about your camera?
Because when you get down to like 30 feet, the colors start to get filtered out, and so if you have an artificial light, it brings those those colors back in.
Right.
Before venturing out to the wrecks in deeper water, we decided to dive along the shore and try to get some good fish shots. We found bluegill defending their spawning beds, from us and from other fish. I was surprised at how close the largemouth bass allowed us to get. If we weren't chasing them, they would often swim up to us. Nowadays, we wear dive computers on our wrists to track time and depth and avoid any decompression sickness. This is new for me since when I first learned back in college, we used dive tables and manual calculations to track all this. I guess technology has advanced a little in the last 35 years. For our last dive of the trip, we decided to revisit this cool cabin cruiser we found last night. We weren't 100% sure on the location, so we had Brian go down and confirm so I could conserve the little air that I had left. After a couple of tries, we found it and Brian motions me down. Last night, right after we had found it, of course my GoPro battery died, and a couple minutes later my main flashlight went out, so I wasn't able to do any filming. Today, I've got fresh GoPro battery, but I am low on air. No big bass like last night, but instead just a single curious bluegill. The good news is we can see the boat much better in the day, and the GoPro is working. So we start exploring. The top part is around 20 feet down and the temperature's already a chilly 68 degrees. I ventured down briefly to the bottom of the hull and passed through a thermocline where it dropped another 10 degrees. Since we forgot our hoods, I got an instant headache, and 15 seconds later, I was back up into the warmer water. We had just a few minutes to explore the muddy wreck before I realized that I was in the red on my air. So, back up we go. But in all, we had just enough time for a great ending to a perfect trip. I'm going to get right here with the camera and get you going in.
Well, Carolyn said it was really big, but
We'll have to edit that.
Well, I might be able to reach over. I don't know if I can. I don't think I can reach it. I can't reach it. Yeah. Yeah, I can reach it. I can reach it. It might be like this. I look at the gauge, like this. I look at the gauge real quick. I put it down. I check my alternate.
Yeah.
I go here. I check my primary. When I check my primary, I dial it in. I have dials. I dial it in.
Yeah.
Right? And then I put it in my mouth. If you want, or we just skip all that. I just put everything in and jump in.